So yeah, let's kick things off. Warriors and Kings. Um, Fantastic game on Sunday, I believe, where the Warriors, I would say, they survived game four. It was a very close neck and neck game for most of the game. So yeah, just want to know your thoughts on the game, Brian, and what did you see, and what were your takeaways from that game?
So it's probably the best offensive game that the Warriors have played. Like they had a 50-40-90 game as a team. But they only won by one. Mostly because the Kings were able to match them point by point. Like if you watch the game, it was more or less back and forth for the first three quarters.
Yeah,
And then the Warriors got ahead by 10 at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth.
I was just about to mention that.
Yeah, but then the Kings just kind of stayed in it, right? And then it was mostly because of Fox, whether Fox was scoring or creating offense for Murray or for like Monk or at times also for Barnes. It was mostly just it's mostly just De'Aaron Fox keeping the Kings in the game. Um, and the most noticeable thing besides the Kings being able to keep up with the Warriors, despite the Warriors playing a really efficient offensive game, is that the Warriors really shortened up their lineup. Um, Basically, they played their top six guys, right? If you include Poole and Green, they played their top six guys and DiVincenzo, and that was about it. Like there are other guys like Moody and Kaminga and GP2 that played like a handful of minutes here and there, but they basically shortened their rotation compared to how they were playing the first three games of the series. Despite the despite the Warriors winning, I it doesn't feel because usually when a team wins two games in a row, usually they have momentum going into the fifth game, right? Especially in a series that's tied like 2-2. But it doesn't feel like the Warriors have a tremendous amount of momentum going to game five because the Kings were able to hang on were able to hang on for the entire game for the most part, right? Um, and even though Fox has a fractured finger, I mean we've seen players play with it because Sabonis has a fractured thumb for the last 3 months. He's been playing with it. We've seen Kobe in the past, not to compare Kobe and Fox, but we've seen players in the past play with fractured fingers. So I don't think this is a huge deal, to be quite frank.
Yep.
But the series is pretty close to call, in my opinion. It can go either way in game five, but it's definitely not only the most competitive series so far in the playoffs, but it's also been the most entertaining as well.
Oh yeah, with all that high scoring offense on both sides. No, I completely agree with you. Um, I mean, ultimately, great game by both sides. They were able to compete with each other offensively, and that's why a lot of these games ended up with really high scores. So excited to see what happens in Game Five. My prediction is that the Sun, not the Suns, the Kings, will defend home court and win Game Five. I would think the Warriors will win Game Six, and ultimately it's going to be decided in Game Seven. Is the way I see it so far. One thing I wanted to note is that the Warriors are, for whatever reason this season, they are just. I believe I've mentioned this in the previous shows, but they simply almost can't win on the road this season for whatever reason. They just can't.
Yeah.
It's something that they're gonna have to get over, especially in this season, this series. Since so far the only two games they've won were at home, and both teams have been able to defend home court so far. So curious to see if the Warriors are able to win at least one game on the road, whether it's going to be tomorrow in Game Five or potentially Game Seven.
Yeah, I can almost give you the play by play for how I think game five will go. Game five will go, the Kings will get out in front. The Warriors will be down like 10 points in the first quarter. They're gonna commit turnovers, they're gonna do silly fouls, and then the Kings will probably stay in front by like 10 to 14 points for the first three quarters, or first two quarters, I would say. And then quarter three, the Warriors will make a run. They'll cut it close within 6 or 7 points. And then Q4, the Warriors will just continue to make bad over here, bad shot there. But then they'll stay in the game. And then I think the Kings will just close them out. at the end of the fourth quarter, and they'll probably win by like 6 points or something. That's
Oh.
that's been the pattern of the Warriors, not only during this series but throughout the season when they've lost on the road. Because a lot of the road games, it was just due to like bad shooting, fouls, and turnovers.
They've been
Right.
consistent
So
throughout the season.
I can almost predict like how game 5 will be. Having said that, we don't know if Keegan Murray can repeat his performance in game 5, because game 4 was the first game that he kind of broke out.
Yeah.
And we don't know how De'Aaron Fox will adjust to that finger.
Yeah.
And I will say that the Warriors had a chance to win game 1 and game 2. Right. So having said all that, I still think that the Kings will probably win by 5 or 6 points, but
the Kings also have a chance to win game 4.
Yeah, true. Like honestly, like you could make an argument that like the Warriors could be up 3-1 or the Kings could be up 3-1. But I mean, if you really want to exaggerate it, like not exaggerate, if you really want to be like overly optimistic, you could make an argument the Warriors could have swept as well, right? Depending on if the ejection never happened in game 2 and if Wiggins made that open 3 in game 1 and so on and so forth, right? So, but I mean, that's how close the series is, and that's why it's the most entertaining, because 3 of the 4 games, it came down to the last few possessions, right? So, yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see how short the lineups and rotations are for game 5, because even the Kings are starting to kind of shorten their rotations a bit now. Trey Lyles and Alex Len is playing less and less minutes as well, right? So, it in all honesty, by the 6th and 7th game, both coaches will only play 7 players. Just how the first 4 games have gone so far. But yeah, very interesting series thus far.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your take on how the game 5 is likely going to end up, or it could be a blowout. You never know. I feel like one of these games, you never like, even though it sounds competitive, I feel like one of these games might end up in a blowout too.
Yeah, I mean,
for whatever reason.
You can remind me if I'm wrong. I have never seen the Warriors get blown out when they are tied or down in series. They've always gotten blown out when they are ahead in the series. Like they just let their guard down and they just get blown out. Like last year, right? Jaw was out. They were up like 3-1 on the Grizzlies, and they literally got blown out by 45. Like it was literally 45 points like last season, right? And it's the same pattern, against the Rockets, like Harden's Rockets during the Durant years, in 2018, 2019.
Even against the Cavs in 2016.
Yeah. So I feel like the Warriors, I mean, it could change tomorrow, but I haven't seen them get blown out when they've been behind or tied in series. It's always when them getting complacent when the series is close, or when they're ahead in the series, I should say.
True, but I feel like this year is different versus all of the other years.
True. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I feel like you never know. I just feel like they're usually one game or two, like in these tough series where like a team gets blown out, and it could be tomorrow. Maybe I'm wrong. I think realistically, you're more likely to be right than I am, but I just kind of want to play out other potential scenarios that can potentially happen in the game, because I mean, it is a Kings home game, and they want to light the beam and all that. So I think potentially it could happen depending on how well the other Kings play, and we have to, as you mentioned earlier, we need to see how well Fox can play with that injured finger.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, I mean, so what do you think the prediction is in regards to the series? Do we change our opinion since we both have the same opinion?
Oh my god,
Seriously,
I think the series will go 7 games. I think the Warriors will still win the series. I think I said it. I said the series in 6 for the Warriors, right? I think it'll go 7 games now. I will caveat that if the Warriors win convincingly tomorrow, when I say convincingly, I mean like at least by like 6 or 7 points, then I think the series is definitely over in 6 games. Like, but I still think that the Kings will win tomorrow. The Warriors will win Game 6. It'll be Game 7. The inexperience of the inexperience and the, for lack of a better term, nervousness of a lot of the Kings players will kind of come into play in Game 7, and the Warriors will probably win in 7. That's what I think as right now.
I would agree with you. In that sense, I still think the Warriors are going to win due to experience. Still an even series. The only exception is if the Kings somehow win Game 6.
Mhm.
Because I think Game 7. I mean, yeah, sure, they have a chance to beat the Warriors. I think it's a very even matchup so far. But at the same, as you mentioned earlier, and I think we mentioned this in the previous show, where at the end of the day, the Warriors' experience is going to put them over the inexperienced Kings. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation.
Yep.
Kings have a bright future. It may or may not lead to a title now,
Yeah.
or even ever. We're gonna have to see. But I think ultimately the Warriors championship experience should shine through in this series at least.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the last time that the Warriors were knocked out of the playoffs when they were relatively at full health was 2016. Don't recount 2019 because Clay and Durant were hurt. But the last time like when a relatively healthy Warriors team was knocked out of playoffs was 2016. So for me, that's why like it's hard for me to really see the Warriors losing in 7 because with all that experience. So for me, if the Kings want to win the series, they have to win tomorrow and they have to win Game 6 because I really do not see the Warriors losing in 7 games just because.
Which is strange because the Kings have the home advantage.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Yeah, but as I mentioned, I just don't think the Kings would win in 7. It would if the Kings would win, it would have to be in 6.
Also, I don't think Mike Brown has coached a Game 7 ever. I'm trying to think if he's ever coached a Game 7 like because LeBron has lost to back when he was with the Cavs the first time around. He lost to the Celtics,
right?
To the Magic, the Dwight's Magic,
Yeah,
both in 6. Got swept
Wait,
by.
wait, no, hold on. I think the Cavs. I mean, the Cavs did lose to the Celtics in 08 in 7.
Was it 7? Okay.
It was in 7 because I remember that championship run by like Celtics. I think every series they were part of, exception of the championship, they went to Game 7s.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay.
Let me double check though. I feel like that I am correct in that case.
Okay, I will trust your word with it. But point being, Mike Brown has not coached a Game 7 in a very long time.
Yeah,
it's been 15 years.
That I can 100% agree.